Hello, everybody. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. Apologies for our slightly late start. We had some technical difficulties, but it looks like we've resolved all that. So we're very happy to have you back again. We are here again on Guru Rinpoche Day. So happy Guru Rinpoche Day to you all, and welcome to our latest webcasts of Following in the Footsteps of the Lotus-Born Guru, the Life and Liberation of Guru Rinpoche. For those of you that are tuning in again, welcome back. We're very happy to see all of you. And anyone that's joining us for the first time, welcome. This is our monthly webcast that we've been doing since last August of 2024. And this is our ninth installment of the webcast. So we're very happy to have you. I am Robbie, and I will be presenting the general framework of this webcast, as well as a few sites, descriptions, and I'm joined by my three other co-hosts here, Peter, Stefan, and Noor, who will introduce themselves shortly.
Hey, I'm Stefan. Happy Guru Rinpoche Day. Joining you again from Spain, Catalonia, the Pyrenees Mountains. Very happy to be here today.
Hello, everyone. Happy Guru Rinpoche Day. I'm Peter. I'm joining you all from Samye Hermitage in Cooperstown, New York. And today I'll share some of the stories about what unfolded at the sites we'll cover today.
Hello, everybody. Happy Guru Rinpoche Day. I'm Noor, and I am joining, as usual, from Bodhanath in Nepal. And I will be sharing stories and quotations from Guru Rinpoche's principal biography, the Pema Katha. Welcome.
Thank you, guys. Nice to hear from you. So first, let's start by generating the proper motivation of bodhicitta. And we'll do this by reciting these words just as many awakened masters have done in the past. By the power and the truth of our gathering here today, may all sentient beings enjoy happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, and may they never be separated from the great happiness devoid of suffering. And may they dwell in the great equanimity that is free from attachment and aversion. After setting our motivation, we invoke Guru Rinpoche in each webcast, just as the great masters of our time have done in the past. In today's session, we will invoke Guru Rinpoche using the famous Tutreng Sal mantra, chanted by Kebje Tugul Urgen Rinpoche. So, to recap, in our previous webcast, we explored how Guru Rinpoche introduced his students to the nature of mind and transmitted the Dzogchen teachings, which are considered the pinnacle of the Buddha Dharma. In this month, the third month of the Tibetan lunar calendar, we honor Guru Rinpoche's establishment of the kingdom of Zahor in the Dharma. In today's webcast, we will explore how Guru Rinpoche safeguarded the future of the Dharma through the concealment of profound terma treasures, and dispelled the threat of the rakshasa demons, and established his own Pure Land, the Pure Land of Zangdok Palri, also known as the Copper-Colored Mountain. Today's episode marks the 9th installment in our webcast series, where we've been exploring the sacred sites associated with Guru Rinpoche's enlightened activities in chronological order. We started in India, where Guru Rinpoche is known for his study and training. And then we made our way into Nepal, where Guru Rinpoche did the majority of his practice. And now we have entered into Tibet, where Guru Rinpoche's activity has been unfolding. If you missed the previous episode, you can catch up on YouTube by scanning the QR code you'll see there on the screen, or by visiting the NACOR YouTube channel. If you just go into YouTube and just search NACOR, you'll see the red seal. That's our channel. You'll also find some additional videos there on various sites around Nepal, near Kathmandu especially. Additionally, our NACOR website offers links to our Vimeo page. So if you go to the homepage of the NACOR website and scroll down, you'll see different links to all the different months of the webcast series. And on the Vimeo page, you can choose different languages that it's been interpreted into. So if English is not your first language and you wish to hear in your native language, use our Vimeo page. Now I'll turn it over to Noor, who will ask for some support.
Thank you, Robin. I first wanted to thank everybody who have been generously supporting our NACOR webcast since we started to do these things. Your kindness is what brings these teachings to life. And if you enjoyed these podcasts or webcasts, please consider contributing. Every contribution matters, no matter the size, it makes a difference. Even a small donation from each viewer can help us continue to share these teachings. You can support us with either a recurring donation via donor box or Patreon, or a one-time contribution starting at just $3 through donor box or PayPal. And to do that, you can scan the QR code, which is on the screen right now, or you can visit samiyatranslations.org/donate. And any additional funds that we receive will go directly into continuing the resource that we are generating. It will go in continuing the research that allows us to bring across this resources that you can find on NACOR websites and books and so on. So yeah, thank you very much. And if you're on the fence about contributing, please go ahead and do it. Thank you.
So just to recap and locate everybody again where we have arrived. So as Robbie pointed out, we had a long journey following in the footsteps of Guru Rinpoche through India, through Nepal, through Tibet, through all the other countries that in Southeast Asia, as well as the Himalayas, where Guru Rinpoche has traveled. And the ultimate, the sort of final webcast that we have arrived at, we focused in particular on the establishment of the Buddha Dharma in Tibet. And here we can sort of divide Guru Rinpoche's activity into several topics. And we have tried to follow these sort of topical outlines and cover them in our webcasts. Yeah? And what we're focusing on here is sort of the factors that were necessary, the conditions, the auspicious conditions that were all set and necessary for the Buddha Dharma to be established. And it's very interesting to reflect upon them because we're still in this kind of unfolding and spreading of Buddhism throughout the world. And each of us is part of that in some way or another. And in each of the various countries that Buddha Dharma is now present or is being introduced or has been already established, I think everybody had to go through similar sort of struggles or similar sort of a similar journey of inviting a teacher to the country and establishing a center and becoming part of the Sangha and carrying on the teachings. And I think here it's very interesting to reflect upon the past of how the Buddha Dharma was here first introduced to Tibet. So what we had covered here is that after inviting a total of 3 times Guru Rinpoche by the Dharma King Trisong Detsen and urging him to come, the sort of auspicious tendril or interconnection had formed, and Guru Rinpoche followed the request of the Dharma King Trisong Detsen and entered Tibet. And the first thing that we can see here is sort of the theme of overcoming great challenges. Yeah. Of course, that also took place throughout the stay of Guru Rinpoche. So these challenges manifested themselves first of all in spirits and demons that felt threatened by the arriving new sort of religion, the Buddha Dharma. We can use the word religion for this time, and challenged it, so to speak, and threw in obstacles. Yeah? And Guru Rinpoche, one by one, tamed these sort of evil forces. And the other way that these evil forces manifested themselves were also particularly in the ministers, yeah? Who were opposed to the introduction of the Buddha Dharma, and also created obstacles, and as we have seen in our last webcast, even went as far as managing to get Guru Rinpoche seemingly expelled. Yeah. So we can see that there was also sort of great challenges in the way that by the community of those that were really dedicated to the cause, and of course by the majority of the population, was very much supported. But these sort of challenges manifested themselves in all kinds of ways, and were sort of also a test of devotion, a test of the faith, and the test of the dedication of the people to the cause of establishing the Buddha Dharma. Which brings us to the next point, which is of course the great support, which is not only the support by Guru Rinpoche, but it's also the support that the Sangha established, and it's the support that other teachers gave that were invited similarly and sort of joined this great sort of endeavor or enlightened activity of Guru Rinpoche, such as Abbot Chantarakshita, the Pandita Vimalamitra, and of course the disciples that through the training and maturation rose to become teachers on their own right, such as, for example, Kando Yeshe Tsogyal. And so what then also played a very important role, and we can see as sort of the base layer upon which the subsequent activities were established, was that first and foremost, there was sort of a center was established, yeah, Samye Monastery. So it was very important to have sort of a central location where the Sangha could gather, where there was where the Dharma could be transmitted by the teachers to the students, where you would have really a center where everybody would come together and can study and practice the Dharma. So this unfolded in a most extraordinary way, of course, because we're following the life of Guru Rinpoche, one of the greatest teachers ever alive, you can say. And here we can see how sort of there was the entire process and hardships to finally having laid the foundation and having dispelled the obstacles and having gathered the right support to build this monastery. And once it was established, and of course, while the outer foundation was laid, or the base layer, you can say the next was the establishment of what we could term, for example, enlightened speech. And here we could refer to the scriptures and the translation of sort of the entire body of the Dharma, where there was, again, a lot of effort and hardships that we're currently sort of speeding through to just locate everybody again, but also give the broader picture. And here we can see how the great translators traveled to India, to Nepal, to many other places, such as the regions of Kashmir, and trained in the skills of translating and conversed with great scholars from other countries, and then returned with the translations and the knowledge that they had gained, and then undertook this grand translation projects, which was, and I think still is, the biggest translation project, I think, in our history. And finally, and all of these things were also unfolding in a sense parallel. You have the establishment of the enlightened mind, which is, once the Dharma of scripture had been established, you have the transmission of the Dharma of realization. And here, led by Guru Rinpoche, mostly, for example, in the caves of Samye Chimpu, you have the introduction to the 9 yanas, and in particular to the Vajrayana teachings through Guru Rinpoche. And finally, as we have also seen in our last webcast, introduction of the teachings of the Great Perfection, or the Dzogchen teachings, in which Guru Rinpoche sort of transmitted his full and complete realization to the students and empowered them to become teachers as well, to uphold this profound lineage and to realize the own true nature of their minds and to become teachers in their own rights, so that this profound lineage is continued. And then the final act, which will be the topic of today's webcast, is that Guru Rinpoche, to ensure that the teachings would last long into the future, to ensure that there wouldn't be any sort of corruptions of the pure and authentic instructions, that it wouldn't be altered, that the blessings would remain, how to say, vibrant and intact, Guru Rinpoche hid profound treasures, terma treasures. Yeah? And this is something quite unique also to the activity of Guru Rinpoche and to the Nyingma tradition as a whole. But in no ways at the same time is it sort of a new invention. Yeah? So it's quite interesting that if you look back into the scriptures, you actually find already a prophecy by Buddha Shakyamuni himself talking about the hiding of treasures. And I think, if I remember now correctly, the Sanskrit word was nidhi, yeah, for treasure or terma. And there is a very nice quote by Buddha Shakyamuni where Buddha Shakyamuni prophesies that in the future his disciples will reveal treasures from the water, the earth, the rock, and the sky, sort of pointing out sort of the various locations from which treasures could be revealed. And here Guru Rinpoche, very much as part of securing the Buddha Dharma, engaged in this vast activity. Partially, I think you can see it also in the image that we're displaying, where Guru Rinpoche goes to caves, not only interacts here with individuals, both humans and non-humans and spirits, but you can also see where Guru Rinpoche sits in a cave or goes to a rock and places something inside. So you can see the gesture here, which is depicted on this mural. And yeah, so these terma treasures are spiritual instructions or sacred substances or very sacred statues, which Guru Rinpoche intended to preserve for future disciples, so that the future disciples could engage with the teachings of Guru Rinpoche directly and still sort of ensure that the lineage is not broken, that these instructions remain pure and authentic, and that they could receive the blessings from Guru Rinpoche directly himself. So what happened is that the teachings that Guru Rinpoche unfolded at the time that he was present in Tibet to his closest disciples, he sort of entrusted it to them and then planted it in their mind streams, so that then when in the future they would sort of reincarnate as the great treasure revealers that we honor to this day, these could sort of re-reveal what Guru Rinpoche had previously shared with them. So it's also not in a sense, an ordinary memory, but it's sort of evoked through very special circumstances and often aligned with a lot of important circumstances or tendrils that have to come together for a certain treasure to be revealed. So these can be, on the one hand, for example, mind treasures, where the treasure revealer has a recollection of the time of being in the presence of Guru Rinpoche as one of the disciples, and the particular practice or instruction being taught. But they can also be earth treasures, where, for example, following visions or dreams of Guru Rinpoche, the treasure revealers then led to a very particular location. And there, the treasure revealer would gather on a certain auspicious date, was usually following certain practices that had been recommended, for example, in the visionary guidance. And then with also particular individuals being present, often also, for example, the principle here of Yabyum, sort of the male and female, the wisdom and skillful means coming together in, for example, Great Turton being accompanied by a spiritual consort, is very important for these treasures to be ultimately revealed. And again, here in the earth treasures, you have the precious statues and substances that then are distributed to the disciples or preserved or used as objects of worship on the shrine, as well as, for example, they call them Dakini scrolls, which is often sort of a yellowish paper where you can still see them at the beginning of certain terma revelations or practices, where the treasure revealer would reveal this particular Dakini script. So it was written in the sort of divine script of the Dakinis and then hidden. And while seeing these symbols, it would similarly spark again in the treasure revealer's mind, sort of the memory of being in the past in the retinue of Guru Rinpoche when this particular instruction or practice was being taught. And then it's sort of revealed, yeah. And there's a very interesting book by, I think it's Toku Tondrup, The Hidden Treasures of Tibet. He's very beautifully outlined the entire treasure tradition. And here it's interesting that, for example, it's pointed out that once this memory is triggered, and the moment it's sort of written down, then it dissolves again. Yeah. So it's kind of has its own, it's sort of a non-ordinary memory, how we usually train in memorizing something and maybe also forget about it again. But it's sort of this circumstances that have been created spark it, and then it's written down, and then it dissolves again and sort of almost needs to be afterwards re-remembered or re-memorized. Yeah? So I'm sure many of you are familiar with the wonderful practices and treasures that we in the various traditions that we're in have received, and that are very beautiful and very profound, and that are sort of also the direct link to Guru Rinpoche. Yeah? So Guru Rinpoche, when revealing, when hiding these treasures, often manifested in the form of Dorje Drolo, which is considered to be Guru Rinpoche's sort of most wrathful appearance, riding a tigress, and in this form sort of overpowering the spirits often that are, for example, guarding a location, and binding them often as the guardians of the treasures themselves, and then hiding them. And in this most sort of powerful and wrathful expression, Guru Rinpoche also was sort of the wisdom that expressed itself was sort of the most sort of vibrant and had sort of the most transformative power. And this kind of sort of powerful blessings that are sort of sparking, you can say, from Guru Rinpoche. With this sort of energy, Guru Rinpoche then also hit those treasures. Yeah? And the tradition often counts 13 locations in particular where Guru Rinpoche manifested as Guru Dorje Drolo and hit profound treasures. But of course, as we can see and are probably well aware of, Guru Rinpoche hit treasures throughout Tibet and beyond. And these treasures were revealed in all sorts of forms. Yeah? But here, to sort of boil it down and to look into some concrete locations, in this webcast series, we will focus on 3 in particular. So these are mentioned in Khandro Yeshe Tsogyal's biography, and they're divided into, among these 13 Taktsangs, they're called. They're named after the mount of Guru Rinpoche, which is the tigress. Often they're called tiger's nest, but actually more correct sort of translation would be tigress lair. And amongst these 13, we have the 3, as mentioned in Khandro Yeshe Tsogyal's biography, containing the blessings of Guru Rinpoche's body, speech, and mind. So they're counted and they're called Onphu Taktsang, which is in the Un Valley, slightly above and sort of behind Samye and Samye Chimpu. Then we have Chimekarmo Taktsang, which is in Kham, and it represents Guru Rinpoche's speech. And this we will talk about in our next webcast. Yeah. So the next one that we will be discussing will be on Chimekarmo Taktsang, when we look into the treasure activities, in particular of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, Terchen Chukche Deshin Shikpo Lingpa, and Jamgon Pongpo Rinpoche. And then the third is Paro Taktsang, and Paro Taktsang we have covered in one of the previous webcasts, where Paro Taktsang is also one of the 8 great caves of accomplishment, and this one is representing Guru Rinpoche's mind or heart. Yeah. So with Paro Taktsang already sort of discussed and shared, you can look it up again in the previous webcast. And Chimekarmo Taktsang being shared in the next one, we look at the first one that we mentioned, which is Onphu Taktsang. And here I'm handing over to Robbie, who already now shared an image of Onphu Taktsang with you, and will share more details about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. Onphu Taktsang is located at the head of the Un River, just below the natural divide of a lofty pasture, where mountain passes lead down to the Samye Monastery. In that place there lies a sanctuary famously known as Onphu Taktsang. So to reach this site, one must embark on a day's journey from Dikna, the final village of the upper Un region. The main cave, Khandro Tsokang, or also known as in English the Assembly Hall of the Dakinis, nestles beneath a group of boulders on the south bank of the river, not far from the Zangdok Pass. Additionally, there is another cave of significance here that is called the Zimpu Gompa, or the Upper Meditation Cave of the Guru, in which Guru Rinpoche practiced in retreat. This cave offers breathtaking views of the glacial lake of Taktsang Latso, or the life force lake of Taktsang. So you'll see here some amazing pictures of these sites, and I will turn it over to Noor, who will describe a bit more about some of the events that occurred here.
So, thank you, Robbie. We spoke about this a little bit in our webcast in February, that Munmo Tashi Kidron, um, an activity manifestation of Vajravarahi, and the fifth spiritual consort of the Mahaguru. And here on the slide, on the left, like you can see all the five consorts of the Mahaguru. And we have been exploring their stories throughout our webcasts. And in the center is Khandra Sogel, and in the four directions are the four other spiritual consorts of Guru Rinpoche. So in the front and below is Lacha Mandarava, and she is holding an arrow with silken streamers and a vase of longevity. Then to the left is Belmushakya Devi, and she is holding a vajra and a bell. Above and behind is Belbang Kalasati, and she is raising the Katvanga and a dagger. And to the right is Manmutashi Kidron, and she is brandishing a casket and a dagger. And all these consorts are portrayed wearing traditional garments of the countries that they come from. So, India, Nepal, Bhutan, and Tibet. So Manmo Tashi Kidron was born in the Mon region of Bhutan, and first she became a disciple of Khandra Sogel at Monkaneri Sengezong. And when Khandra Sogel was doing Vajrakila practice, Khandra Sogel recognized Tashi Kidron's great potential and soon thereafter introduced her to Guru Rinpoche at Onphu Taktsang. So this cave is very connected to that meeting. It was on this significant occasion that Guru Rinpoche immediately recognized Tashi Kidron's remarkable qualities and appointed her as a spiritual consort for Vajrakilaya practice. Then and there, the Mahaguru initiated his closest disciples, which now included Tashi Kidron, into the sacred mandala of Vajrakilaya. This potent ritual aimed to empower disciples, both present and future, in the means to overcome obstacles and cultivate auspicious circumstances for their spiritual practice and advancement. Once the empowerment was complete, the Mahaguru said, "It is necessary to disseminate many oral instructions on Vajrakumara. Otherwise, the secret mantra will not spread in this foolish land of Tibet. And the yogis who do practice it won't even be able to protect their own lives. As it is, Tibet's multitude of gods and spirit, enemies of the Dharma, will create obstructions, and the spread of secret mantra will be halted. And even without these hindrances, it would vanish speedily anyway." So then Mahaguru invited his trusted disciples to join him in the practice of Vajrakilaya, and the results exceeded all expectations. The disciples quickly received a lot of profound siddhis, and the divine beings of the Vajrakilaya Mandala materialized directly before the entire gathering. Guru Rinpoche took on the immensely fierce manifestation of Dorje Rolo. Manmutashi Kidron, she shapeshifted into a tigress, and Khandra Sogyal assumed the form of Guru Rinpoche's sacred companion, Ekajati. They remained absorbed in the profound meditative state of Vajrakilaya. Guru Rinpoche and his consorts radiated numerous embodiments of themselves, which they dispatched in all directions to subdue any and all present and future obstacles. As for Manmutashi Kidron, in becoming Guru Rinpoche's consort for the practice of Vajrakilaya, she joined him in the particular task of subjugating harmful spirits and hiding terma treasures. And indeed, as the activity manifestation of Vajravarahi, Tashi Kidron became Guru Rinpoche's activity consort. helping him secure the Dharma for future generations. It was during this period that Guru Rinpoche declared, Onphu Taktsang is a place of the Guru's body. Whoever practices here will attain the accomplishment of immortality. So on this slide on the left, you can see Vajrakilaya surrounded by the king and 25 disciples. On the right is Guru Rinpoche in his wrathful form as Guru Dorje Drolo. I misspoke, but on this side on the left, we see mainly Guru Rinpoche in his wrathful form of Guru Dorje Drolo, riding the tigress Munmotashi Kidron. Not depicted here, however, are his consort Ekajati. So Khandra Yeshe Sogyal is not depicted in this picture. Now, yeah, I will hand it back over to you, Robbie.
Sure. Thank you, Noor. So some additional activity unfolded at this site, as one might imagine, after Guru Rinpoche's initial blessings of the place with this practice of Vajrakilaya. Initially, the sanctuary of Onphu Taktsang was discovered and unveiled by Urgyen Lingpa. And although he revealed profound treasures inside the cave, it was deemed an unsuitable time for disseminating these teachings. This would have been in the early 1300s when Urgyen Lingpa first revealed the site itself. And so he concealed these termas once again inside the site. However, in the 16th century, the sacred site was reopened by the illustrious Changtar master Rigsen Lekden Dorje, who was recognized as a reincarnation of Rigsen Godem. To gain access to the main cave, Lekden Dorje diligently moved 3 obstructing boulders that were blocking its entrance. And during his contemplative meditations within this cave, Lekden Dorje was naturally endowed with insights into the historical significance of the site, as if the wisdom mind of a Turton or a great treasure revealer were unfolding right before him, just as Stefan was describing earlier in the sort of experience of a Turton's mind stream when a terma is triggered by some sort of event or place. He experienced numerous visions and heard the voices of Dakinis, who proclaimed,
The lion-like Pandita of Udayana summoned arrogant spirits and outshone them with his brilliance. He bound local Nagas and land guardians like Malrozikan to oath. He left 10,500 footprints and 100 self-arisen statues.
As the prophecy stated, many naturally arisen syllables and images are indeed found at the sacred site, even today. Subsequently, Lekden Dorje also revealed profound treasures focused on the wrathful guru Hayagriva and the Dharmapalas. Furthermore, the renowned Turton Samten Lingpa emerged as a significant figure in the late 1600s, early 1700s. It was Samten Lingpa who unveiled, in his biography dedicated to Khandra Yeshe Sogyal, he unveiled the events that we're talking about now. So this is where we get these stories, is from Samten Lingpa's terma that he would reveal at this site. Other esteemed masters of the time, such as Chögyé Lingpa and his disciple Raten Topten Dorje, widely known as Padma Tsewangtsel, were also frequent visitors of Onpho. It was during their visits that Raten Topten Dorje unearthed treasures such as the Shiwa Kunzang Tuktik, or the heart essence of the peaceful Samantabhadra, and various treasures relating to Chemcho Karuka and Black Hayagriva. One of the treasures unearthed in Onpho by Raten Topten Dorje was the Mahaguru's Vajrakilaya teachings. And this particular treasure was commonly referred to as the Taktsang Kila, or Ratan Kila, after Ratan Topten Dorje. Later, in a visionary encounter at Paro Taktsang, Rigzen Jigme Lingpa had the privilege of meeting Ratan Topten Dorje in a dream, receiving the transmission of these Vajrakilaya teachings from him directly.
That time, I dreamt I met Padmasambhava, a reincarnation of Langchen Pelsang, and he gave me an initiation into his own Taksang treasure on Vajrakilaya.
Jigme Lingpa later received the Taktsang Kila directly from Ratan Topten Dorje, which became the foundation of his own writings on Vajrakilaya, most notably the Juluk Purva, or the Tantra system of Vajrakilaya. In this unique Vajrakilaya practice, Jigme Lingpa drew upon the Kama tradition, or the oral lineage of Vajrakilaya from the Tantras, and merged it with the terma tradition, or the treasure tradition. Thus, through this, he united the blessings of both lineages into a single practice. Rigzen Jigme Lingpa's compilation of Vajrakilaya texts became one of the most influential within the Nyingma tradition, and its blessings continue to be felt by all who practice Vajrakilaya today. So certainly anyone associated with a Vajrakilaya practice from a Nyingmapa master is experiencing the ripple effects of this activity.
Thank you. So just to summarize to see where we have come thus far. So we shared with you about the story of Momo Tashikiden, Guru Rinpoche's Bhutanese, you can say, spiritual consort from the region of Mun, in a previous webcast where she first became the disciple of Kando Yeshe Tsogel, and sort of Kando Yeshe Tsogel took her under her care, and then sort of they had this close relationship, student-teacher relationship at the sacred site of Muning Sengetsong, sorry, Munkanering Sengetsong. Sorry, the names merged. And there she brought regularly food to Kando Yeshe Tsogel, and Kando Yeshe Tsogel gave teachings in return. And seeing that Momo Tashikiden had this great devotion and great potential, and seeing also the Dakini qualities in her, she asked permission of Momo Tashikiden's father to release her from her bounds and give the permission for her to travel, which the father eventually gave. And so following Kando Yeshe Tsogel on her spiritual journey, eventually Kando Yeshe Tsogel met the Mahaguru at this site of Onphu Taktsang that we have just shared. And here, Kando Yeshe Tsogel introduced Momo Tashikiden to Guru Rinpoche, and seeing this great potential in this Dakini, Guru Rinpoche immediately introduced her to the teachings of Vajrakilaya, of course, having already undergone previously the spiritual path with Kando Yeshe Tsogel. And in this sort of extraordinary event, through the practice of Vajrakilaya, all the disciples that were present, even beyond these two great concerts, reached great accomplishment, and here sort of transformed together with Guru Rinpoche through the practice of Vajrakilaya in Guru Dojo Jolo. While here the biography shares that Kando Yeshe Tsogel became the consort Ekadzati of Guru Dojo Jolo, it's usually not depicted in the tankas, so that's why we don't have an image. But you can see here that the practice of Vajrakilaya was one of the main Yidam practices of Guru Rinpoche. We can see, for example, in particular with Asura Cave in Yanglo She, where these obstacles were dispelled, and that Guru Rinpoche bound many of the evil spirits through the practice of Vajrakilaya. And we can also see that through the practice of Vajrakilya, Guru Rinpoche manifested as Guru Docho Drolo, and sort of through these practices hid these terma treasures. And we can also see how here the consorts became sort of an active part of this enlightened activity. So very much being an activity dakinis. And the history, maybe for us practitioners of Onphu Taktsang, might not be practices that we're necessarily as familiar with. It's very much also linked to the biography of Kando Yeshe Tsogyal that is available and can be read and published by as Lady of the Lotus-Born. It's a very beautiful biography as well. But it's also more to just give an insight into some of those very precious sites. Some are sort of less known to us. Unfortunately, parts of this sacred site had also been destroyed. So the picture that we shared is its current state. There was even a guide available to the entire site and all the activities that unfortunately had been lost as well. So the impression that we wanted to give was not was more to see the history, how it was sort of unraveled through the activity of several of generations of enlightened masters, and how maybe not one particular practice is very relevant for us, but for example, especially the teachings that in the end were synthesized by Viksen Jigme Lingpa and bringing together these traditions of Vajrakilya through his writings is a quite important part of the Nyingma tradition and has influenced and is still influencing the practice of Vajrakilya to this day. So it's sort of also indirectly that we're kind of receiving somewhere also the blessings of Onphu Taktsang right now. Yeah? So that's kind of interesting that sometimes we're, although I guess each spread all over the world, the connections that are there through these teachings to these various sacred sites that is very interesting maybe to bring out a little bit and remember this history. Yeah. So this was just a short summary thus far, and now we'll turn with Peter to Guru Rinpoche's departure from Tibet.
Thank you so much, Stefan. So now we're back in the time of Guru Rinpoche, back in Tibet. And we're at a stage where Dharma King Trisung Detsen has reached the age of 59. And he meets with a tragic accident, and this brings his life to an untimely end. He passes away. And when this happens, the Tibetan kingdom is thrown into turmoil. And in the midst of this crisis, the Mahaguru, Padmasambhava, steps forward, and he ensures that the succession takes place. So the kingdom is then passed to the Prince Mutik Tsempo, who is the rightful heir. And the Mahaguru ensures that he is enthroned without any delay. The Mahaguru then oversees this worldly kind of transition of power and continues to nurture this prince's spiritual path. Prince Mutik Tsempo had been a devoted disciple of Guru Rinpoche for many years, but it was only after his father, King Trisung Detsen's passing, that the Mahaguru bestowed upon him the highest teachings of the Great Perfection. And it was through these teachings that Prince Mutik Tsempo gained his own profound realization. He became a ruler of the land, but also now a true spiritual leader who now had this kind of wisdom and realization in order, which he could use in order to guide the Tibetan kingdom with the Dharma infused in his rule. So the kingdom has now been secured, the Dharma is firmly rooted, and the Mahaguru now turns his attention to a growing danger. In his clairvoyance, he sees that rakshasa demons, kind of dark forces, are gathering strength and they're preparing to invade the human realm. And the only one who can stop them is Guru Rinpoche himself. So he goes to the young king and he tells the king of his plans. He has to leave Tibet to confront this threat. Overwhelmed with sorrow, the new king, Mutik Sempo, pleads, "Please, Guru, have compassion, stay in Tibet. Without you, our land and people will be lost." So you can imagine Guru Rinpoche is saying he's leaving Tibet. How would his students react? And it's with please. But the Mahaguru replies, "I must go help beings elsewhere. If I don't tame the Rakshasa lands, suffering will spread and the Dharma will disappear. But know this, for anyone with faith, I am always near. At dawn and dusk, and especially on the 10th of the lunar day, I will come for my disciples' welfare. Honor the Sangha and sacred places, and you honor me. My compassion remains. I will always protect my followers." So as we've seen throughout this webcast, many of Guru Rinpoche's most powerful enlightened actions took place on the 10th day of the lunar calendar. That's why even today, and that's today, Tibetan Buddhists celebrate to the 10th day as Guru Rinpoche Day, a time to invoke his blessings and remember his presence. So once the news of Guru Rinpoche's departure became public, apologies for the noise in the background, by the way, there's construction going on here at Samye in New York. We're literally building Samye here. So I hope you can hear me. But once the news of his departure became public, Tibetans from every corner of the land gathered at Samye. It said that they became like a great flock of birds. They were bringing offerings, requesting teachings, and asking for his final blessings. And with his deep compassion, the Mahaguru taught them all, offering his final instructions on how to walk the path of Dharma. Eventually, he departed for the Gungthang Pass, which is the place where he would depart from. Many followed him, tents were set up, and for 3 more days he gave teachings, especially to his closest disciples. These teachings were later safeguarded like treasure and hidden as terma, or spiritual treasures, as we've been talking about, to be revealed in future generations. Among these teachings are the Leyudunma, or the prayer in 7 chapters, and the Mahaguru aspiration prayer, both of which remain deeply cherished to this day. And finally, among all of the parting teachings and hard advice he gave at Gungthang Pass, one moment stands out. His final words to his closest disciple, Khandro Yeshe Tsogyal, words that reveal how to invoke him when he is no longer physically present.
He says, "When you can see me clearly, take empowerments and rest in the view. Until you see me so, persist in meditation. Recite the quintessential Vajraguru mantra. And, concluding, let your body, speech, and mind be mingled with the Guru. Call on me with prayers and dedication, and stay within the great perfection, the essential sphere beyond all action. Nothing will surpass this, Yeshe Tsogyal. Padmasambhava's compassion neither ebbs nor flows. The rays of my compassion for Tibet cannot be severed. There I am, in front of anyone who prays to me. I am never far from those with faith, nor even from those without it, though yet they do not see me. My predicted children are forever guarded by my love. In future, henceforth, on the 10th day of the moon, I, the Lotus-Born, will come astride the lordly day star, in forms peaceful, enriching, attractive, and wrathful. At 4 times, I will show myself, and thus will grant attainments to my children.
Thank you, Nor. So, if we take a look at this slide, you'll see the humble yet sacred site of Mangyul Gungthang Pass. Here you can see it draped in colorful prayer flags and marked by a small shrine. This is no ordinary place. This is where the Mahaguru first entered Tibet. And it's now in our story of Guru Rinpoche's life and activities where he's preparing to leave. So the year is 864, the Wood Monkey year, and it's the 10th day of the monkey month, which aligns directly with the very same astrological date of the Mahaguru's miraculous birth, when he appeared on a blossoming lotus in the lake of Dhanakosha. So on this auspicious day, the same day of his birth, Guru Rinpoche took leave of Tibet. After delivering his final teachings, the Mahaguru's disciples sat in silent meditation, their hearts heavy but steady in practice, as he made his preparations to depart. As told in the Pema Katang, the great epic of his life,
As they camped at Gungthang Pass, clouds swirled and rainbow lights appeared. From them emerged Balaha, the blue king of steeds, adorned with jewels. Gods and goddesses gathered, offering royal and auspicious symbols, music, and the presence of their kings. Guru Padmasambhava, mounted on the magnificent horse and led by the Daka spirits, they soared into the sky in a swirl of light, leaving the king and disciples behind. The king and his followers stayed in meditation by Rongtang Sho Pond in Mangyul until the 25th day. At sunrise, they glimpsed the Guru far away, shining like a flicker of light, then shifting forms, raven, dove, fledgling, bee, and finally disappearing from sight. Still, they meditated, watching. In the evening, they saw him again, like a sun ray beyond India, resting at Mount Jambuza. By morning, he paused near Sri Lanka's city of iron, beneath a magnolia, his steed grazing. Thousands of rakshasa maidens gathered, transformed by Dharma. Into the doorless iron palace strode the skull-garlanded king of the rakshasas, and all bowed in respect.
when the Mahaguru was no longer in sight, the disciples slowly turned away from the Gungthang Pass and began their journey home. Their hearts were heavy, the sadness of their beloved teacher's departure was deep, and yet alongside that sorrow, they also felt immense gratitude. They knew that without the Mahaguru, the Buddha Dharma would never have taken root in Greater Tibet. His presence, his teachings, his boundless compassion, these had changed everything. But even in his absence, they were not left empty-handed. The Mahaguru had entrusted them with a wealth of parting instructions, teachings that offered clarity, direction, and strength for their path ahead. Many of the disciples had wished to follow him, to accompany him on his journey beyond Tibet, but the Mahaguru had gently declined. Instead, he urged them to remain and urged them to ensure that his legacy would endure. And they listened. With deep devotion, they dedicated themselves to this sacred task. They became teachers in their own right, passing down the Mahaguru's words to future generations. They also took great care to conceal many of his teachings as terma, these spiritual treasures meant to be discovered when the time is right. But their commitment didn't end there. These disciples vowed to return again and again to take rebirth in future lives so that they too could continue the Mahaguru's work and uphold the Dharma. It is because of their unwavering devotion, their tireless effort, and their courageous vows that the Mahaguru's legacy remains alive and unbroken even to this day.
Thank you. So as Peter mentioned them briefly before, we would like to highlight two of the renowned treasure revelations that emerged from Guru Rinpoche's profound exchange with his students as he departed Tibet through the Gungthang Pass, namely the Leodunma, the prayer in 7 chapters, and the Mahaguru aspiration prayer. So you'll see here this Sampalundra depiction coming from the Leodunma, but we'll talk a bit more about that below. Centuries later, in the Water Dragon year, 1352, Tukul Zangpo Drakpa revealed the Leodunma prayer, the prayer in 7 chapters, at the Rulak Yang and entrusted it to Rigzin Gudem, who deciphered it from the Dakini script. The Leodunma is one of the most beloved prayers invoking the Mahaguru and features 7 individual prayers given to his 5 disciples, Namkai Ningpo, Dharma King Trison Detsen, Khandro Yeshe Tsogyal, Nanam Dorje Dujam, and Prince Mutri Tsempo. The initial 6 prayers were given in the 12th month of the male fire horse year, 766, but the final prayer, the Sampa Lundrupma, the prayer to Guru Rinpoche that spontaneously fulfills all wishes, was given to Prince Mutri Tsempo as the Mahaguru's parting testament on the Gungthang Pass. The Sampa Lundrupma safeguards the practitioner against conflict, disease, poverty, obstacle makers, vicious animals, disturbances of the 4 natural elements, robbers, sudden death, the intermediate state, clinging to reality, and the sufferings of the 6 classes of beings. Later still, in 1858, Chogyar Lingpa and Jabyeong Khyentse Wangpo revealed the famous practice cycle, the Lame Tukdrup Yishin Norbu, or the Guru's heart practice, the wish-fulfilling jewel. Along with the Guru representative statue, known as Guru Kutsab Ngondrup Palbar, which you'll see here, the discovery of this priceless teaching transformed the Sampalundrupma prayer into a sadhana. On this slide, you can see the Guru Sampalundrup on the left, depicted in standing posture, ready to act. And on the right side, you'll see the Guru Kutsab Ngondrup Palbar. This particular statue, this representation of the Guru, is one of the most revered termas. Well, every terma is quite highly revered, but this is regarded as one of the most sacred Guru representative statues in existence.
Now we're gonna briefly talk about the revelation of the Mahaguru prayer. So the profound Mahaguru aspiration prayer was discovered in Lodrak by renowned treasure revealer Pema Lingpa, who lived between, I think, mid-1450s to 1520s or something. And in this prayer is contained the last words spoken by Khandro Yeshe Tsogyal to Guru Padmasambhava when he was preparing to leave Tibet. And this text documents a deeply personal encounter between the Mahaguru and Yeshe Tsogyal, who was his closest disciple. And it does carries immense blessings. This prayer is held in high esteem by numerous revered masters, and it continues to be recited widely up to the present day. The prayer commences with, Mahaguru, bless me, that in all my lives to come, in your pure land, in the palace, inseparable from you, Master, I may always be. Now, let us turn to Zangdok Palri, the glorious copper-colored mountain, the pure land of Guru Rinpoche. Stefan?
Thank you. So as we can see in our webcast today, we're focusing on the sort of final deeds of Guru Rinpoche in travel revelation, and then his departure from Tibet, and the beautiful heart advices in both as advice as well as prayer and practices that Guru Rinpoche shares as sort of his final testaments. And if we turn now to the location that Guru Rinpoche traveled to, it's called Chamarat Dvipa, which is said to be one of the islands at the edge of our world system. And it's said to be inhabited by sort of these rakshasa demons, which are said to be cannibalistic demons that were sort of poised to invade the human realm. So there was sort of this point and threat that Guru Rinpoche saw, that if Guru Rinpoche wouldn't intervene and stop this threat, our sort of realm would have been overrun by these demons, and they would have just destroyed everything. So this is the sort of premises under which Guru Rinpoche leaves Tibet behind to tame this realm. And since it's Guru Rinpoche, did this again in the most extraordinary way. So on the one hand, we can see what you can call a reenactment of the liberation of the demon Rudra, which symbolizes ego clinging, which again here sort of manifests as the king, the leader of these Rakshasa demons, which is called Ratchaturtreng, or skull garland Raksha, because he had this sort of skull garlands hanging around and adorned himself with those. So in order to subdue the realm and bring it under sort of the command and prevent this invasion, Guru Rinpoche enters and liberates the consciousness of this demon king, and as sort of a sign of not only the victory, but also the transformation of these sort of most negative energies and deeds that this demon has committed, and the sort of the transformation and showing that their enlightened nature, Guru Rinpoche assumes the form of this demon. And we do have a tanka depicting from the Tuktobache Kunzel cycle, this manifestation, which you can see here on the left, where Guru Rinpoche assumed this form and is displaying it, yeah, having transformed this immense sort of ego clinging and negativity that has resulted from it. So this is, again, you can say, as we can also see in the Vajrayana stories, that the Vajrayana originated from the liberation of Rudra, this sort of embodiment of ego clinging that then was put to an end through the skillful means of Vajrayana and transformed, and where the deities are wearing often these sort of ruffle attire and ornaments. They're also similarly displaying the sort of form of the embodiment of egohood and the negative emotions that are here completely transformed through the methods of the Vajrayana. And on the right side, we can see one of the tankas depicting Zangdok Palri, and we share with you soon another very beautiful image. So by liberating and the king, the Raksha demon king, and assuming the form, sort of Guru Rinpoche managed to transform the entire kingdom and again begin his sort of Dharma teaching there and guiding the realm in sort of a certain disguise, and transforming it through his powers into sort of a Nirmanakaya Pure Land, yeah, where disciples can be reborn and continue to follow Guru Rinpoche to enlightenment. And Guru Rinpoche simultaneously manifested the fourth Vidyadhara level. So as we remember back, we shared the importance in the journey of these 4 Vidyadhara levels, for which Guru Rinpoche also attained immortality. So the first one Guru Rinpoche attained in the 8th grade Channel Grounds by practicing there. And the second one, Guru Rinpoche, for which then Guru Rinpoche manifested also immortality, was at the Maratika cave. So in the first Vidyadhara level, sort of Guru Rinpoche's mind was fully transformed. And then in the second one, through the power, Guru Rinpoche could transform his body and sort of, in a sense, dematerialize it. So basically, with full control over the physical elements, Guru Rinpoche transformed it into a rainbow body. And then the third one was attained at Asura Cave in Yanglashe, also in Nepal. And for this, Guru Rinpoche could also transform. Now the power has reached that Guru Rinpoche could transform the perception of others as well. Yeah. So from his own mind to the body to the perception of others. And for this, we can see that often in the teachings, Guru Rinpoche appears in these various manifestations that then the disciples there could directly perceive. Yeah. So like, for example, Guru Doje Jolo. Yeah. So this is also linked to this third stage of the level of Vidyadhara. And then we have the fourth Vidyadhara level, which Guru Rinpoche now manifested in Zangdok Palri, for which his sort of presence becomes universal, so to speak. And Guru Rinpoche is everywhere for everyone. That's why also here we have it connected to these prayers that Guru Rinpoche is merely a thought away, or merely, how to say, a moment of devotion away. And particularly, as we can see, the tendril or the blessings of falling on the 10th day with all the major activities, that Guru Rinpoche particularly is present on the 10th day itself. So here, Guru Rinpoche transformed this entire realm into the pure realm of Guru Rinpoche, where his disciples could take rebirth and then follow Guru Rinpoche. But it's also from here that Guru Rinpoche sort of sent his emanations, as he said in the many prophecies, again and again manifesting beings to his reincarnating, so to speak, in various manifestations to continue to guide the disciples and not to leave anybody behind. Yeah. So now we turn to Robbie, who, so the knowledge of Zangdok Palri we here now not only get from the biographies itself, but also from the various masters that traveled there in visions, and then brought back the descriptions of Zangdok Palri, sort of a, how to say, a live insight into where, how the realm looked like, the pure realm, and a description for which then these tankas were drawn and painted. Yeah.
And just one thing really quick, I see that one person raised their hand. We'll take questions after we present everything. So at the end of the webcast, Tien, if you would like to ask your question, then we can answer it as best as possible. If you want to just put it in the chat, we'll review all the questions in the chat. So as Stefan noted, we are going to talk a bit about some visionary journeys to this great pure land of Zangdok Palri. And among the many visionary journeys to Zangdok Palri, both recorded and unrecorded, we would like to share now the account of Terchen Chokyur Dechen Shikpo Lingpa. In the year 1861, when the great Terten was 33, he entered a strict 3-year retreat at the residence of Vajra Raid Palace of Secret Mantra on the slopes of Akanishta Karma, the remains of which you can see here on this slide. During this retreat, Chokyur Lingpa made the first of 3 visionary journeys to the copper-colored mountain of glory, the pure realm of Guru Rinpoche. During Chokyur Lingpa's visionary journey to Zangdok Palri, the Dakinis instructed him to remember every detail and describe it with precision upon his return. They emphasize the importance of this for having the imagery depicted in paintings so that his disciples could later visualize Zangdok Palri and hold that image in their minds at the time of their death and thereby be able to be reborn in this sacred, pure realm. Following the guidance of the Dakinis, the great Tertin shared his visionary experience with his students, who diligently recorded it and commissioned a tanka, or a traditional scroll painting, to depict Chogyar Lingpa's account. So I'll switch to the next slide where you guys will see exactly what that depiction looks like. This particular tanka you may have seen before. This is from Shechen Monastery in Nepal, depicting Chogyar Lingpa's first visionary journey to Zangdok Palri. And it's based on Chogyar Lingpa's descriptions. And it was initially commissioned by Kyabje Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche.
So the great Vidyadhara, Chogyar Lingpa, and the 5 Dakinis boarded the great ship and miraculously arrived at the other shore in a single instant. The Dakinis led the way, and together they reached the eastern side of the mountain. They continued on their journey, looking in the 4 directions. We saw the bathing pools of the 4 activities, gardens of different kinds of flowers, many types of birds, and deer with melodious and modulating voices. These animals spoke in human language and were discussing the Dharma in accordance with their individual characters and abilities. The trees, water, and wind were also emitting the sound of Dharma. So pleasant was it that it felt even staying for eons would not be long enough. So the first story of the central palace, the Nirmanakaya. In the large central palace of Lotus Light, the great Guru Padmasambhava was surrounded by a retinue of 100 great Panditas, 100 great translators, 100 of awareness holders, and 100 treasure revealers. There he opened the mandala of the ocean of Dharma, the gathering of transmitted precepts. For the section on the inner showering of resplendent blessings, Dakinis of the 4 classes performed a dance in front of the mandala, with the Dharma king Trisangdetsen and his sons seated before them as the event's benefactors. Upon witnessing this, Chogyar Lingpa felt boundless faith and devotion, and blissful elation, as if he had attained the first bhumi, truly joyful. He felt not even the slightest puff of pride at having arrived in this place without first having to discard his body, these aggregates that perpetuate defilement. The second story of the central palace, or the Sambhogakaya. As they reached the middle level, they saw the Lotus-Born Guru with 100,000 Vidyadharas, including the 8 great Vidyadharas of India. He was turning the great Dharma wheel of the mind, space, and 5th instruction series of the Great Perfection. Chogyar Lingpa paid homage and made mandala offerings. During these deeply felt supplications, Guru Rinpoche proclaimed, "The Great Perfection is primordial purity, free from all effort and action." Then, directing his gaze into midair, he uttered, "Ah, ah, ah, pet," and remained in a sky-like state that defies expression. The third story of the central palace, or the Dharmakaya. There, on the upper level, he beheld Guru Rinpoche in the 5 aspects of Totringsal. Clustered all around him were the 5 Sambhogakaya families, in an inconceivable array, emanating and reabsorbing throughout the whole of space. He was teaching by means of the Dharmakaya speech, that is the nature of non-arising, the Sambhogakaya speech of symbolic intent, and the Nirmanakaya speech of verbal expression. Robed in the attire of the supreme Nirmanakaya Buddhas of the 10 directions, he was seated in the midst of an inconceivable retinue and accompanied by countless offering goddesses who were there to make offerings and receive teachings. The scene was completely beyond description. So this just now concludes a brief excerpt from Guru Rinpoche's visionary journey. For the complete account, you can refer to the book, The Great Teton.
Thank you so much, Noor, for sharing that vision with us. So at the very beginning of our webcast series, we opened with the theme of aspiration. We explored how Guru Rinpoche in a former life made powerful aspirations that eventually led him to become the great tantric master we revere today. So it's only fitting that as we approach the conclusion of this series, we come back to that same theme, aspiration. But this time our focus turns to the aspirations that we can make, aspirations that can help pave the way for our own rebirth in Zangdok Palri, the glorious copper-colored mountain. Zangdok Palri is no ordinary place. It is the ultimate destination for Guru Rinpoche and for all those who follow in his footsteps. Over the centuries, many accomplished masters have spoken of their visionary journeys, recounting how they traveled to Zangdok Palri in dreams, in deep meditation, or even during waking visions. These accounts have been carefully preserved, passed down as treasures of inspiration and truth. Some of these masters also pointed to physical places in our world that reflect the blessings and qualities of Zangdok Palri. One example is the island of Sri Lanka. And beyond the sacred visions and earthly locations, practitioners have also created beautiful representations of this Pure Land, which have been acts of devotion that serve both as reminders and as blessings in themselves. Robbie, if you could move to the next slide, we can see some of these. So for instance, on the left hand of this image, you can see the stunning Zangdok Palri temple in Kalimpong, India, commissioned by Khepje Dudjom Rinpoche. On the right, we have the renowned wooden Zangdok Palri, which was carved entirely by hand by the late Dungzin Rinpoche in Pema Yangtze in Sikkim. So these visions that we're discussing, these sacred sites and representations, are far more than artistic or devotional expressions. They're living links to the pure perception of realized beings. They inspire us, they bless us, they remind us of what's possible. Now, at first glance, a miraculous realm like Zangdok Palri may seem far beyond our reach, but that's not actually what Guru Rinpoche or the great masters have taught us. In fact, they've shown us that the exact opposite is true. Through genuine practice and devotion, we can form a real and lasting connection with Zangdok Palri. The key lies not somewhere out there, but within our own perception. At its core, reality has always been pure. The world itself is a pure land. When we begin to realize this truth, not intellectually but directly, our entire perception begins to change. For a highly realized being, this world is Zangdok Palri. And as we gradually purify our own perception, our capacity to see and enter these sacred realms expands. Even the sutras tell us, once we reach a certain level of realization, we can visit Buddha realms, receive teachings, and return with blessings. The appearance of Zangdokpalri within a single lifetime, within a single body, is not just possible. It is the natural outcome of pure perception and deep realization. And so Zangdokpalri is not just some distant fantasy. It is present, accessible, and alive right here, right now, through the power of devotion and pure view. In fact, when Dudjom Lingpa once asked how to reach Zangdokpalri, a Dakini appeared and gave this profound reply.
Zangdok Palri is a pure lamb of the manifest body of enlightenment, a celestial realm on earth. When one abandons the 10 non-virtuous acts, cultivates stores of merit and wisdom, and makes significant aspirations, one will be born here. In every direction, inside palaces of precious crystal, are golden thrones swathed in silks, seats for all who attain such rebirths.
The Dakini's reply here is both profound and also practical. She affirmed that the key to reaching Zangdokpalri lies in our own perception, and she explained this clearly. When practitioners cultivate both merit and wisdom, and when they make strong aspiration prayers, they will be reborn in Zangdokpalri at the end of this life. The teaching not only gives us hope, but it gives us direction. And that's why the Zangdokpalri Munlam, or the aspiration prayer for rebirth on the glorious copper-colored mountain, has become a central part of practice for many followers of Guru Rinpoche. It's more than just a prayer, it's a bridge, a way to align our hearts and minds with the path to Zangdokpalri. It's true, we may not all have visions or dreams of that sacred realm in this lifetime, but that's okay. What truly matters is that we plant the seeds now, through practice, through aspiration, and through devotion, so that when the time comes, we will be reborn there. And because Zangdokpalri is not just for the rare or the exceptional, it's for anyone who walks the path with sincerity. And through the blessings of Guru Rinpoche and the power of pure perception, that realm is always closer than we think.
Thank you. So we basically here conclude with our journey of Guru Rinpoche throughout India, Nepal, throughout Tibet today in this webcast. And we have really had sort of an amazing journey following in the footsteps of Guru Rinpoche. And it has been following Guru Rinpoche in 1,000-year-long presence throughout this world, of which Guru Rinpoche, of course, passed many years in India itself, training and perfecting the Dharma before engaging in his deep practices that he performed often within the hills of Nepal. As we can see, for example, reflected in the second and the third Vidyadhara levels, which Guru Rinpoche attained in Maratika and in Asura and Yanglo caves, till he finally entered Tibet and shared the sort of immense treasure that he had amassed but also perfected. And so the idea is actually that with here today, we'll conclude the sort of journey of following directly in the footsteps of Guru Rinpoche. What is awaiting us in the next webcast is looking at the treasure activities of Guru Rinpoche's, you can say, regions, or looking into the legacy that Guru Rinpoche left behind, and as this is sort of revealed but also upheld by the great masters Jamin Khyentse Wangpo, Terchen Chukchi Deshin Shikpo Lingpa, and Jamin Kongtrul Lodetaye. So next webcast we want to focus on the treasure sites, and also in particular Chimekarmo Taktsang, which is one of those tigress lair or Taktsang sites. And there we have a little surprise for you in the upcoming webcast, which we'll then share with you. And then to conclude our webcast series, there will be one more webcast in July, for which we also have a surprise for you, which we will share in due time. And then finally, of course, this series will conclude with the yearly Tsokbum, which falls in celebrating Guru Rinpoche's birth on the wood monkey, in the monkey month, which is the 6th month, which falls into August. Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much again today for participating. The blessings of all of this journey from following in the footsteps of Guru Rinpoche, they're all seeping through, and we can very much always connect, as we can see, with these various sites. And particularly the blessings of Zangdok Palri, we can see present, for example, in the beautiful temples and carvings that have been preserved, and the tankas, but also in the many prayers. And we will shortly conclude also with a short, beautiful 4-line prayer for aspiring to be reborn in Guru Rinpoche's pure land of Zangdok Palri. And now we can turn to Robbie, who will conclude the webcast. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. What an amazing accomplishment. We did it. We've journeyed all the way to Guru Rinpoche's departure from Tibet, and now we are entering into the copper-colored Pure Land. This is, incredible. And very happy to announce that we still do have our earlier books, the Guru in Nepal and the Guru in India, in reprint, available through Amazon. So if you wish to order a copy, you can still do so. And the Tibet volume is still orderable online, and it will be for some time. The other thing, I think we had a question come up, but I'm not sure if that person is still wanting to ask their question. But if so, please just put any questions in the chat. So I'm monitoring the chat now. I am not seeing any questions in the chat, and we have gone a little bit over time just because we had that slightly late start. So thanks to all of you for patiently staying with us till our conclusion here. And if there's no questions, then we'll proceed to dedicate the merit of gathering here for Guru Rinpoche Day, and we're going to also add a slightly different dedication here that relates to Zangdok Palri. Okay, I think no questions. So yeah, let us now make aspirations to be reborn in Zangdok Palri and dedicate the merit. The following brief Zangdok Palri aspiration prayer was composed by Terchen Chokyur Lingpa. So we will first listen to the prayer chanted in Tibetan by Songyun Kunzam Dechen, the spiritual consort of Kyabje Tukul Urgyen Rinpoche. And then we'll read the prayer together in English. So just give me 1 second while I cue that. So now we'll recite that in English. The primordial nature is inseparable from the Lotus-Born. The pure self-experience is the glorious copper-colored mountain realm. The indivisible unity of awareness and experience. May we all be born within this innate simplicity, this realm of original purity. Through this merit, may all attain omniscience and conquer the enemy, wrong action. May all be freed from samsara's ocean and its pounding waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Thanks again to everybody. That concludes our webcasts for this Guru Rinpoche Day. And it's been wonderful having you all for this journey. And we look forward to having you again next month. So we'll gather back again next Guru Rinpoche Day. And as Stefan said, we'll transition into speaking of Chogyur Lingpa's activity. So please do continue to join, and hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very
Bye-bye.
much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Happy Guru Rinpoche Day. Bye.